Hi, I'm Ben Kingsley. Welcome to filmreviews.net.
Thank you all for coming. I'm going to start with a nice, easy question for everyone, just going down the line, starting with you, actually, Sir Ben. This is a movie about the power of cinema and the power of movies to move and inspire people. Can you remember the first time you sat in a cinema and were really inspired by a film? What was that film?
I can indeed, and it's wonderful to be sitting next to the man who gave me the DVD years later. It was a film that we both saw when we were very young, made by Havelock Allen, called Never Take No for an Answer, and it was indeed an orphan, again, who survived Allied bombing. His parents didn't, and his sole pal, mode of employment, job, family, business, everything, was his donkey called Violetta. And he was basically the 8-year-old mayor of the village, and everyone loved him and his donkey, and the donkey would be the taxi to take the drunk home, to bring the firewood in, he was the haulage contractor. And I was so just got a horrible feeling myself for this film. I was so taken by this film that, and I looked very like the little boy. Actually, when I was a little boy, I looked very like him. And I decided that's me, and I'm him, and we just completely bonded on the screen. And then after the screening of this movie, Never Take No for an Answer, in Salford, the cinema owner spotted me in the audience, and he thought that I was the star of the film. and he said, "Oh, of course, the star always comes to Salford, and it's on a good show." And he said to the assembled Salfordians, "It's little Peppino, it's little Peppino," and lifted me up above the audience. And he started it all right. I thought, I can really get used to this. So, and then years later I told our beloved Marty the story, and he said, of course, I know that movie, and within 24 hours he got the DVD,
yes.
So I'm able to watch it all over again. But that was my first massive impression to the cinema, introduction, and huge impression, and determined me to be in movies ever since.
Fantastic. And Mr. Scorsese, do you have a similar experience with the same movie, I guess, or was there something else that inspired you?
No, it was I think for me, movies for a long period of time, excuse me, were a refuge in a way. I was told, just have to, for those who have to say that it is, because of having asthma, I was not allowed to do any, it was 1944, 45, I'm not allowed to do any sports or anything like that. So, and go near anything green or animals or so I was pretty much taken to the movie theater very often, and I saw many films in the 40s. Became enamored of the genre, the Western genre, because what I couldn't go near or be near, there it was, it was up on the screen. But the film that, and I started making my own little drawings, it was like panels, it was from my comic strip. But the film that I think created the biggest impression on me about film and about filmmaking, or saying that maybe you could do this yourself, at least you can get the pictures to move, was The Magic Box. And that, my father took me to see that at 52, I was about 9 or 10 years old. And by that point, the thing in that film, the element there is not just the moving image, but it was the obsession and the passion of the people at that time creating William Freeze Green, one of the inventors, played by Robert Donak, the sweetness of the character, and yet a man who was so obsessed, his whole personal life was destroyed by it. There's something about that film, the love, the passion that he had for the potential of this new machinery, coming at a time too, right, pre-World War At a time too when the machines, the Wright brothers, automobiles were being worked. The whole world was a major change up until 1914 or so. It was going to be such a different society. H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, you know. And so cinema, something happened when I saw that picture, and that has that wonderful scene in it too, with the train coming through the station, the Lumiere brothers scene, and Richard Attenborough sitting in there. And he plays a character. It's a film filled with every cameos with all the great British stars of stage and screen at the time. And he's sitting there. He has his friends. He takes these young ladies and a few friends. He says, "Come to the carnival. We're going to look at these. We'll show you this new thing, cinema." And he knows that the people are going to be duck when they see the train.
Okay.
So wonderful image of him, the camera, like I'm the camera here, and you're the audience. And he's looking up and the flickering on their faces. And as the train comes closer to them, everybody around him screams and moves away, and he's just smiling. And I said, "My God!" So that was the first time, and I went home, started drawing more pictures that moved. But something about the beauty of his obsession with the potential of the mechanism itself, the creation of the celluloid, the creation of all, which is all different now, of course, in digital, but it's still telling stories, with a moving image.
And Chloe, did you have an experience that inspired you to start acting?
Yeah, definitely. You know, my mom's always been pretty obsessed with Audrey Hepburn, and as am I. And so one of the first films I saw that really inspired me to be an actor and kind of be someone else would probably be Breakfast at Tiffany's, because I saw Audrey Hepburn and I saw how she just lit up the screen, and she makes you smile when you see her, and her little face, and she just lights up the screen. And when I saw that, I just realized that that's what I would like to do. You know, that's something that I would like to do. I'd like to make people smile. I'd like to make people dream. I'd like to make people imagine that they're in that time and that feeling, you know. And that's I guess that's one of the things that really inspired me to be an actress.
Asa?
Well, it wasn't so much watching a film that inspired me. It was during the filming of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and a sort of a switch sort of flicked in my head. Because only before that, I didn't really take it that seriously. It was a sort of a pastime, extracurricular, if you would. But during about halfway through the filming, I sort of realised that this is something I really want to do, and it's a passion of mine. And ever since, I've just tried really hard to be the best I can be and just enjoy it. I mean, I just love to be someone who you wouldn't be able to be in real life, and to do things which are impossible, and it's magical.
Fantastic. We've got a lot of time, so I'll get through as many of you as I can. Let's start with the Anne one.
Question for Chloe and Asa. What did you think of the films of Georges Méliès that you saw?
I love them. I mean, Marty did give us lots of homework to watch old films, both by Georges and things that inspired him as a film director. One of the first things I saw that you showed me was The Magic Box.
Oh, that's right. We screened that just to get a sense of the time of the respect and the love for the medium. The respect is an art form.
Yeah. Same thing, basically. Yeah, you showed the Magic Box into that screening.
Yes.
At the, I forgot what it was.
Something like the BFI.
Yeah, something like that.
British Film Institute.
Yeah, exactly. something like that. And I went in to see it, and it was one of those magical experiences. You know, sitting in the cinema, and like Marty's there, and everyone. I was like, this is just a surreal moment, you know, when you know you're not only doing a movie with Marty in your whole life, but as a young actor, you know, as a 13, 14-year-old, it was really just.
And I showed you some of gave you some of the DVDs too of Méliès' films too.
Yeah, you just did the whole reel.
I think that the first Méliès film I saw was when Marty flew us out to New York and saw the jet lag, and so me and my mum woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and so we were bored, there was nothing to do, it was still dark outside, and it didn't have any room service, so we got on the laptop, got on the internet, and we watched some of Georges Méliès' film on YouTube, which was great fun. We watched Safety Last as well, so...
Gonna
It's
fry your
perfect
mind.
for 3 in the
Jam
morning,
my
I tell
mind.
you.
Quite bizarre.
Come on, sure. Yes, sir.
It's a question for Mr. Scorsese. The film comes across as a love letter to silent movies and to that embryonic period. How important is it to you that today's generation recognises where movies came from, and how important is it that the film as an entity is preserved?
Well, I think the problem is really the generation of the new generation. It's a problem with every generation, which is the obligation of the ones before to inform and to expose the new generation to the great art of the past. Great, good, possibly good, maybe not very good, but to a certain extent, it goes with everything. I think there are many painters who would study the old masters in museums, paint and repaint the paintings before they did their own, or while they were doing their own. Theater, language, certainly, of course, literature. What would it be like if, there is I guess there might be a school of thought would be that you don't have to see anything of the past to do and express yourself artistically, to write a novel, or to write a play, or to make films. But I think if we make it available, I think one studies, or one becomes aware of the older work that came before, of the older masters. Easy if you want to reject it, which is part of the process. To be angry and say, that's impossible, it's no good at all, look at this, this is wonderful here. And then come back to realizing maybe I'm a little too harsh. 20 years later, or 30 years later, I'm a little too harsh on certain people when I was younger. But the reality is and it's exciting to do that with children and a younger generation. Very exciting, I think. And you never know how they perceive, younger people perceive what they see in the stage, or particularly from this, I don't know what the cinema screen is going to become. I do know. I think it's if things run its course, it will be something that's not going to stay on the stage. I should say on a wall. It's going to be moved out to the audience in many different ways. And that could be a very low-budget independent film, or it could be a film that costs a great deal of money. But I do think it's important to make younger people aware of what came before in every aspect of every art form. And it's exciting, too. And as you do that, very often, if you're working with young people, working with students, the like mentoring, they use mentoring, that term, but the idea is I get a lot out of it. Whether I expressed it correctly or not, or best, I don't know. But I do get a kind of regeneration of that, to see that excitement sometimes, to show, let's say I've showed you the magic box, or we give Asa Yojimbo. Okay? Then, what was the other one? Paths of Glory, which you haven't seen yet. I know you haven't looked at it yet. So even a year you got the DVD. But I mean, this sort of thing, to get a sense of it, or to argue about whether Max Ophuls' American films were as important as his later French films, with the young filmmaker. And that I found fascinating to see. And that just is something that, well, it's part of being alive. Huh?
Fantastic. And yes, please.
Just picking up on that, Mr. Scorsese, with this and The Artist coming out as well, there does seem to be a resurgence of interest in silent cinema. Why do you think that is?
Silent cinema, yeah, I had no idea about The Artist. I mean, I understand it's a silent film, black and white. Again, a lot of this has to do with timing, I think. We didn't know a plan. I don't know what's going on in California. I live in Manhattan, and every now and then my manager calls me. My wife is on the internet and says, this morning, don't tell me. So it's really I'm working in it. I had no idea that these films would be coming out. The thing about the silent cinema one has to understand is this great response of, we always said, oh, that was cinema, and you could do anything you wanted. That was one kind of cinema. When cinema was started, when movies started, everybody wanted sound immediately. In fact, there's a quick clip in the movie of two men dancing, and there's somebody playing a violin into a giant kind of a recording device. That was Edison. They were recording. They wanted sound, color, very important, And depth. They wanted depth. The Lumiere brothers have made several films in 3D. They've been restored. I saw them. They were made in the 20s, but they were made. Eisenstein was working on 3D. His books were all there. When he had his heart attack, it was part of the. Imagine Eisenstein films in 3D. Imagine what they would have done. Potemkin in 3D. I'm not saying that should be. I'm just saying. Can you imagine the mind of someone like that, creating Orson Welles, creating something in 3D? I mean, so for me, it was silent film. More than 90% of silent films are gone anyway. They're gone. They continue to go. Nobody cared about it. If you really see a silent film in its original form, like the restorations that Kevin Brownlow and Gail did of Rex Ingram's pictures, I mean, look at Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and the proper speed. I mean, it's another language completely. Or Victor Sjöström's films, they're another language entirely. At times extremely modern in the acting too, in many cases. And one has to get into that mindset to see it. So I don't know how much of it is really, I think I saw a few silent films when I was a kid, but they were always scratched up and people jumping around, and I didn't understand what the attraction was, aside from motion image, the motion, I should say, the moving image itself. But I don't think there's anybody around now who really experienced that time of silent cinema. But I wonder if, as you say, the possibility of several films being released at the same time is maybe an appreciation, again, back to the roots of how this all began.
Of course, this film's in 3D now for the actors. What's that like? Is it a different experience making a 3D film?
Well, it's quite different. I mean, the actors sort of, part of it is sort of mostly forget about the camera. It's more for DOP, Marty, and sort of special effects teams. It's more for them to look at. But occasionally there was the 3D moment, as they called it, where you reach towards the camera. They did a lot with Sasha. Sasha would lean in right into the matte box and they'd make it come out into the audience, and that was great fun. But it wasn't that much of a change working 3D, other than the fact that it made everything take a lot longer, as we know from experience.
And Chloe and Sir Ben, did you find that you had to change your technique subtly to...
Well, I think that Chloe and Asa are so young that they're pure, that their performance is not filtered through anything. And it was a great addition to the 3D discipline on the set to be working with Chloe and Asa, who work from the heart and not from the head. Because if you work from the head in 3D, it'll spot it. You have to be utterly genuine. You have to be accurate and you have to be modest in front of the camera. It is far more scrutinizing than any close-up lens I've ever experienced in my life. The young chaps probably were just acting as they always act, which is with total naturalism. But in response to the young and response to the camera, and of course Marty's direction, for me it pulled out a stillness and a modesty that I loved going into. I had the temerity to have a conversation with Marty at the beginning of the shooting, where I offered that if he would like take 2, it would be less than take 1. If he would like take 3, he'd see less than in take 2. If he would like take 4, he'd see less than in take 3. I always try to minimize. And the joy of the 3D and Marty behind the camera is that however you minimize, nothing is lost, nothing is wasted, and everything is seen. You have to combine 3D with Marty's all-seeing, all-loving eye as the director. No single tiny gesture that we offer the camera is lost, wasted, or ignored. It's amazing to have everything captured that you offer. It's beautiful.
Totally, yeah. I mean, exactly. Just as Servant said, it's acting is reacting, and with this, you can't overact. You can only react because it picks up everything. It picks up the lint in the air, the fiber in your eye. It's really a window into your soul as an actor, because what you see is is the character. You see Isabel, you see Hugo, you see Papa Georges, you see Mama Jean. You don't see Sir Ben, Chloe, you know, Asa. You see these people, and it's like a black hole. It sucks you in, and it makes you cry with them, you know, and it makes you be a part of it. And you know, especially with the steam and everything, it makes you can feel like the heat and the smell of the smoke and just the feeling of the 1930s Parisian train station.
We've got time for one last question, sorry, let's see each other in the front row.
Just continue on for Martin Scorsese. Continuing with the 3D theme, did you adjust any of your work ethic for the medium, and is it something you'd like to take into your future films?
Yes, it is something I'd like to take into my future films. I've just happened to be a great admirer of it, because when I first saw those Viewmasters and the stereoscopic images, as I said earlier, I was taken into another space as a child, and tapping into that imagination of a child, which is the same thing that I depend on and look for, and really, really depend on whenever we'll make a film. I'll never do anything like this. But it has to be there every day, that thrill of the imagination. And somehow seeing those first 3D stereoscopic images has that. And there's that, maybe my last connection to childhood imagination is that feeling. And so I've been fascinated with 3D all my life. I don't see any reason, if it's used appropriately for the story, why not, you know, the same as color or sound. Big, wide screen, small screen, you see. It really, like as I always pointed out, for a long period of time, color was something very special. Until it was, at first, everybody complained about it until 1935, when they got it right, Calmus and Technicolor. Then by 1970, it was announced that every film would be made in color. And we were all appalled because, you know, like a Midas Extraordinary, the films that came out of England in the late 50s, early 60s, the black and white, you know, I can't even, indescribable. And so this is what we were aspiring to, but somehow color became, through the demand of the audience and through a generation that grew up not on black and white films, just became natural. So as I mentioned, a film like Fish Tank or films, the color is part of the story. It's part of who you are in life and part of the story they're telling. But we're forgetting one other thing. There's also space. You know, you can have space. We're fooling around sometimes to have the 3D moment, so to speak, because as much as possible of the idea that the 3D world I was trying to create was tapping back into that something which is so ephemeral. This feeling of magic when I saw those first images when I was a child. I don't know how to describe it. That was the way we struggled shot by shot. But yes, I also wanted a few of the old-fashioned 3D moments of hands reaching out just enough in time to cut away and to see how much we could play with it. But I think, yes, I would like to deal with the 3D as an element in the future, there's no doubt. And the equipment is getting much more flexible. They're working on ideas about losing the glasses. All right. So, why not?
We shall see, man. It's fantastic. Thanks very much indeed. And that's all the time we got, all the time we have, I'm afraid. So thanks for coming, thanks for your questions, and thanks most of all to Asa Butterfield, Chloe Grace Moretz, Martin Scorsese, and Sir Ben Kingsley.